takes just a moment. Okay. And I'm going to begin the recording.
This meeting is being recorded.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome from wherever in the world you're joining us, either live or through the recording. We thank you for taking this time to choose consciousness, to choose happiness, to make a conscious decision to own your own happiness and do something about it, something that you can do. Again, if you're watching the recording or one of our social media channels, we welcome you to subscribe to our channel. We have a whole plethora, I love that word, of recordings for healing, for yoga, for meditation, and all topics of the science of religion. So please join us and comment, share freely, let us know what you might need from us. We're here to serve that. We are going to have our topic here tonight on acceptance, and I will be sharing my screen here. To be able to speak to this topic, because oftentimes we think that acceptance is giving up. We often feel, in fact, you think about the great battle of Kurukshetra that's spoken about. Krishna himself was the charioteer for the great disciple Arjuna. This is the story of the Bhagavad Gita. If you haven't heard of that great epic out of the Mahabharata, one of the great scriptures of India. It speaks about a battle, and in fact, Arjuna, the great disciple of Lord Krishna, was really unwilling to accept his responsibility. He had great resistance to go to war against his own family. Now, it's allegorical, metaphorical. His family was actually a representation of all of the 100 sense emotions, the human characteristics: lust, greed, anger, fear, animosity, all of the various feelings and emotions, the human aspect that are quite troubling for us because they tend to rule our lives. And until we get control over those, we'll never really know true happiness. And in fact, happiness is our nature. And one of the greatest paths towards that is to replace that resistance with acceptance. Because in that surrender lies the ultimate victory. And I'll share with you some examples and illustrate what I mean by that. First of all, Yogananda had often said, your trials did not come to punish you, but to awaken you. All circumstances in life are inherently neutral. Our response to them make them positive or negative, of course. So it's our response to those circumstances that is tantamount to how much awakening we will experience. But everything happening in our lives is given to us as a gift. You look at any situation and meet it with acceptance, and it will result in a positive response, a positive emotion, positive feeling. If you looked at any situation, the same situation, with a non-acceptance, it will always result in a negative emotion. Now, I spoke briefly about the dynamic of current and how energy flows through a circuit, including the circuit of our own energy bodies. The current generated by our negative aspect of our Muladhara, our first chakra down at the base of our spine, and the positive aspect in the Sahasrara, the crown of our head, our seventh chakra. And the current flowing here will dictate a lot. And in fact, there'll be a time beyond today's trend, if you will, to take a photograph of your magnetic field. We call that Kirlian photography, right? It's really more about heat. It's actually taking a thermal image of your heat signature, not so much your electromagnetic field. But there will be a time when we'll have instruments that we'll all own. It'll be probably a mobile app on our cell phones or something, and we'll be able to see our magnetic field and the field of others. And we'll know. That'll be a feedback loop, just like we could take our pulse or our temperature and our heartbeat and our blood pressure and know from those inputs something about our mind, our attitude, our body. Well, more importantly, if you could see your magnetic field, if you could see that field swirling about you in a counterclockwise direction as viewed from above, you would be in a very uplifted, exalted state, because the current would be flowing up through your energy spine. I'm using my thumb to represent the right-hand rule in physics, and my fingers curling around that thumb to find the flow of magnetic field lines created from that current. So if my current of my energy body is moving up, my magnetic field is like this, and my entire being is uplifted, exalted. I feel happy. I feel light. There's no problems in the world that are so overwhelming to crush me. Likewise, if I allow the energy to flow down, if in any situation I resist and I don't accept it, no, I can't accept it. The world is round and it's rotating about the sun. I could live in my ignorance, then I'm going to generate a downward response, and my field will be clockwise as viewed from above, the opposite of an uplifted, exalted field, and I will be living in a downward state, a heavy state. Life will be a downer. So our responses to all circumstances are very, very important to what our actual magnetic field is doing. And our magnetic field is determining what our whole physiological function is looking like. I'll give you some examples. If you see someone doing something in a way you don't want it to be done, and you're not able to accept it, it will result in frustration and anger. If I see somebody cut me off on the street or run a red light, I do get angry. I will readily admit I have moments where I will go, that is wrong. I just can't accept that. If, on the other hand, I'm able to accept it, perhaps as my loving partner here is able to do, she'll realize, well, that person is just in a bigger hurry than I am. Please go. Maybe they're bleeding. Maybe they're going to the hospital. Maybe their wife's in the back seat giving birth. Who knows? We don't know what that person is undergoing. Let's not judge that. Let's just allow it. Let's accept it. She's honoring diversity, diverse behavior, the way people act differently, rather than creating a negative emotional response. She's creating an uplifted field. When someone has something that you don't, they have a bigger house, a nicer car, more money, a loving relationship, a dog, a pet, anything. They're able to perhaps produce results that you can't. Oh, they are such great painters. I wish I was a painter. They're able to work faster at work and get accolades from their boss. All of these things, if you're not able to accept it, you become jealous. Again, a negative emotion, your field moving downward, you're taking on the weight of the world and experiencing pain and suffering. If, on the other hand, you can accept it, you become inspired. I'm inspired by what they're able to do. Now, I have my own things that I can do, different from others. We all have our own unique play, our own unique role to play in life. But we should never forget that this life is nothing but a play. We come into it, we live it, and we leave it. And in this material form, there's a birth and a death, and it's done. Our consciousness is birthlessness, deathlessness, beyond form. That continues. How about encountering uncertainty? You don't understand. You don't know how you're going to handle a situation. You're not able to accept it. You're living in fear. The negative emotion, the response. In the same way, if you're able to accept that uncertainty and not worry about how you're going to handle it, just accept it, embrace it, you'll feel adventuresome. You'll feel free, unlimited, unbounded by the lower emotional response of fear. You'll build into courage. When someone's done something that's emotionally hurt you and you're not able to accept it, you feel hatred. When you're able to accept that emotional hurt, you're able to come from a place of forgiveness. Same circumstance. Two bipolar responses. One creating an uplifted energy, strengthening your field, enlightening your state of being. The other, bringing you down. When someone's present in your thoughts but not physically there, and you're not able to accept it, you say, I'm missing you. Oh, I'm so sad. And we experience this a lot with death. We have a friend who was with us last week, a dear friend, whose father is on that cusp of leaving the body, and he came here in such a state of sadness. Well, his father's 98 years old. I was rejoicing in that moment that he's about to become free and liberated from that body which was not functioning well for him any longer, be beyond the pain and suffering of that material form. Here I'm celebrating, and he was totally distraught. When you're able to accept that, then you're able to hold their presence in your thoughts. They live on forever. There's nothing to miss, nothing lost. And so it is, as our dear friend and teacher Naya Swami Kriyananda had said, as we think, so our lives and circumstances become also. This is one of the greatest lines out of one of the most ancient scriptures of India as well, out of the Vedas. As we think, so our lives and circumstances also become. Every word out of your mouth has a consequence. Every thought has a consequence. Thoughts are the power that are manifesting our energy. The energy for wellness, the energy for happiness, the energy to get up in the morning, to accomplish things in life, to be a good friend, to serve others. How many people go through life with this, I'm just so tired? How do you think that person feels throughout the day? Tired. I'm bored, my daughter used to tell me at 10 years old. It was her classic line, Dad, I'm bored. I would look at her and say, so, Chels, how's that working for you? You're manifesting your own reality. If it works for you, great. But don't look at me. Change them. Change yourself. Realize that your reality is self-created. You are that divine creator. You're made in the image of the divine, image of God. You are a saint having a human experience. So why think otherwise? Because as you think, so you will become. Think like a saint. Have uplifting thoughts. Embrace change. Remember, this law works at all times, and that you are always demonstrating according to the kinds of thoughts that you habitually entertain. It's interesting to realize the science of the brain as neurobiologists know today, and it's fairly new. Just the last few years, they realize the brain is not fixed and rigid, it's resilient. We used to think, at least I was taught when I was a child, you're born with so many neurons, and then as you grow old, they start dying off, and that's what old age is. And you forget, and you have all these affirmities of the physical body. We used to think that the neurons, the cell of the brain, was fixed and rigid. Now we know that they're completely elastic. We can change them instantly. The other thing we know about the brain, which is quite interesting, is the brain is a non-judgmental appliance that is here in self-service to us. It is there to serve whatever your desires are. If, for instance, you decide that you want to learn a foreign language, I'm going to learn French. I love the French people. I think of going to Paris. I've liked French movies. I like French food. Whatever these are other thoughts you'll add to that intention of wanting to learn French. And the more you add, your brain begins to create synapses. In other words, it goes, hey, neurons, come here, let's get together and form a neural network conducive to learning a foreign language. And then more specifically, to learn French. And it will literally, within 2 weeks, form an entirely new neural network whose sole purpose is to help you learn French. Now, you create that neural network. You don't necessarily know consciously you're doing it, but you are. And as I said earlier, as you add more visual imagery to that intention, you think about France, you watch a French movie. I think often about Anka, and whenever she says a French word, it gives me chills because I love how she says it. We think about going to Paris. All of these things are enhancing my brain's desire to build out a network to serve my intention for learning French. Fascinating, isn't it? So you change your brain constantly. Literally now, the neuroscientists, in particular the biological science that is studying the brain, have instrumentation to where they can map the brain changes with intention, and they've shown that within 15 minutes of that intention, the brain begins to show demonstrable change. And within 2 weeks, it's formed a new neural network. It's phenomenal. So start now to think only those thoughts that will bring you the greatest health, the greatest happiness. This is your birthright. You were born as a conscious, present, joyful soul. In India, we call that Sat Chit Ananda. Ever conscious, ever present, ever new joy. You were not born to be in pain and suffering. Now, in our Western traditions, we're taught otherwise, aren't we? We're taught no pain, no gain. We're taught that if you're not suffering, you're not improving. Even in yoga, you hear many yoga teachers say, oh, hold that breath, 5 more, come on, you can do it. It's like, and they're in pain, and they may even be doing damage to their body. That's not yoga. Yoga is to tune your consciousness to the highest truth, to the divine. That's not painful. And if you join us for the yoga tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock every Thursday online, 10 a.m. Thursday, every Thursday Pacific time, you'll experience that. There is no pain in that practice. It's all joyful. And it's an inward practice of healing and awareness, and a meditative practice with theta healing, which Anka leads. So, transform your life. Decide now, who do you want to be in 6 months? And become that. What kind of body do you want to have in 6 years? You realize that every cell of your body is dying off and reborning in a roughly 6-year cycle. There's not a single cell of that physical form of yours that will be in existence 7 years from now. Not one cell. So start manufacturing the kinds of cells that you want to have. There is no stronger healer than yourself. And your body has a miraculous capacity for self-healing when you apply these yogic principles inwardly. So it isn't the world that surrounds you, it's not the circumstances that you're faced with in life, which are all inherently neutral, but the quality of your response, whether you're accepting or non-accepting. Become liberated, become free by letting go. In the immortal words of the Beatles, just let it be. That will determine the quality of your life. Instead of asking who or what is distracting or disturbing me, ask yourself, what am I resisting? What is it about this situation that I'm unable to accept? And change yourself. The world is going to do what the world's going to do. People are going to be people. Most people, admittedly, are, I'll say, walking dead. They're not awake, they're not conscious, they don't care that they just cut you off on the road or ran a red light or steal or do all the things that they do. They just haven't awoken to their true nature yet. But they will. Allow those circumstances to be what they're going to be. You can't change the weather, but you can change yourself. And therefore, the weather, no matter what it is, can appear to be quite delicious, rain or shine. Replace that non-acceptance with acceptance. Because truly, what you see is entirely up to you. In the great words of our Gurudev, Paramahansa Yogananda, for those who are unconquered in spirit are the real successes in life. If you can so train or condition your mind that you're content, regardless of what you have to do, or what you have, what you don't have, and if you can stand the challenge of all the trials and remain calm, then you know true happiness. As Swami Kriyananda would say, in the center of life's storms, I stand serene. So thank you for joining us for this brief satsang. For those of you that are enjoying it from our social media channels or our recording, we're going to now do some chanting here at the Temple of Joy and meditation. I'll stop the recordings and the broadcast. And again, welcome you to subscribe to our channel. Join us each week, Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Pacific for our Healing Circle, Wednesday, 7 p.m. for our Satsang and meditation, and Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific time for our yoga class with Theta Healing. All are welcome. It's free, and it's a choice you can make that will enhance the quality of your life. So be well, spread that love and that joy, and thank you. Namaste.